This is the Apostles That Rock Podcast.
Hey, we're following up.
Hey, this is Mark from Casting Crowns.
Hey, what's up? I'm Toby Mac.
Hi, this is Dawn from Firefly, and you're listening to Apostles That Rock.
This is the Apostles That Rock Podcast. I'm Thomas Lopez. It's episode 94, and on this podcast, our own Tim Ewing talks with a band called Remnants Altar. They're a progressive rock band out of Florida. Their music can be compared to Third Day, Casting Crowns, and Jeremy Camp. Tim will talk with them about some of their latest music, as well as their latest album, Mortified, which you can buy on cdbaby.com and Reverb Nation, as well as stream on Spotify. They also recently signed with RPM Live Entertainment. If you love what we do, consider supporting the podcast at apostlesthatrockradio.com.
Remnants Altar, I think, is a really great name and very creative. And I was wondering how you came to decide on this as your band name and the meaning behind it.
Well, actually, if you know Romans 11:5, it talks about that there's a remnant according to the elect of grace. And this is actually a theme throughout the Word, especially in the epistles you hear. And it's actually in the Old Testament too, when it's concerning the talking about the tribes of Israel. But basically, to us, that the remnant just really is the word that's used for the true believer. The one that's worshiping in spirit and in truth. And so, Remnants Altar is the altar of our hearts. The altar part is like, we no longer have an altar, obviously, in this grace dispensation. So the altar of our hearts is where it's at. So the Remnants Altar is just like, it's basically just points to worship, is the main thing.
Awesome. I love that so much. That's so cool that you can take that right out of the passages of Scripture. I heard that you've got a few great stories of how you guys got started as a band and how you were able to find your audience. Could you give us a story or two and share how you evolved as a band over the past 7 years of ministry as a band?
Yeah, really, the best way to put into the story anyway is because we're really a collective of many stories, but the idea here is that we're from Florida, okay? Mm-hmm. So when you're from a state like Florida, which is mostly a retiree state, and it's hard to do what we do, playing, a rock band. So when you have like 85% of the population is people that may not listen to what we are doing. So we spent the first year or 2 years actually playing. There's a lot of shows. Our motto has always been say yes until we have to say no. And so we played a lot of places that because that's what ministry is. So, and a lot of times we used to get before we really found our audience, we used to get a lot of turned cocked head sideways kind of looks like, oh, what are these guys doing, because we weren't really doing the norm. So in that, it kind of carved us out in who we are. It helped us to stay humble and really taught us a lot about who we are and who our audience really is. So kind of the whole thing there. Cool.
Well, you recently released an album called Mortified. Could you share an overview of the CD and what someone might expect when they pop it into their CD player?
Tell you what I expect every time I pop it in there. I definitely enjoy it. I mean, it's sort of something I think that the idea of what we do, especially that album in particular, it's when you listen to a lot of Christian music today, I think a lot of Christian music has either gone to the point where they're kind of like really, really edgy, really, really heavy, or sometimes even more so airy and watered down and kind of, some of the modern worship that we hear is kind of light and very, very light. And I think there's a big chasm in between those two.
Right.
That's really like, there's not a lot of music in there. And so this album, Mortified, I believe it fits right in the center of those two extremes, really.
Now, before we get to the songs on the album, I heard that you guys actually recorded and produced the whole thing from your house. Could you talk about this process and why you decided to do it yourself versus going to a professional studio to record?
Money. Yeah, that's true. Budget had a lot to do with it. It's true. Honestly, and the biggest issue, I think, for me, because I'm kind of a control freak when it comes to my writing, and everybody would say that, right? Go ahead. Yeah, guys.
We're nodding our heads if you can't see that.
Yeah. We're very honest about this. But the truth is, I don't like handing my baby to someone that may not love it as much as I do.
Right.
If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so sometimes, and I've had to do that in the past, and it didn't always turn out the way, if I had a child, which I do, and if I had a child and I said, here, and I handed it over to a stranger and said, raise my child, and then on graduation day, what would I get? And so in a way, this is what you do to your music sometimes when you are in a studio that may have people that don't appreciate what you're doing as much as you do or understand your vision. Mm-hmm. So you come out, with maybe not what you wanted, actually. So also it gives us the time to be more creative, doing it from home. We can take our time to really listen to what we want to do and really take time to search our hearts. We don't have like a weekend to rush into the studio and try to get something done. We can do it more leisurely, and that makes us more creative, and really we can get to the bottom of what we really believe in our hearts to put down as on the recording anyway.
Exactly. And we felt that it was just better for us to be self-sufficient and try to make our own music and not waste our time in a studio. And I think overall it's been a great learning experience, and it's helped us to grow as a band. We've grown in many ways just because we record our own music.
And that was Matthew, by the way. I don't know if you hear the difference in our voices. That's my son, so he's the drummer.
But that's a really cool illustration. I never thought about recording studios kind of being like a stranger, but that's really neat to kind of think about it in a different way, because most of the times you think recording studios are perfect and that they're going to create this amazing CD and this amazing product and everything's going to go great, but sometimes you don't have that experience, and you have sometimes where somebody doesn't mix it properly or it comes out differently than what you were expecting. So that's a different take that I never thought about before. So that's really cool.
Well, for us too, it's also location where we're at. We're in a city called Spring Hill, Florida, okay?
Uh-huh.
If you look at it, it's a pretty big small town, okay? Mm-hmm. It's a huge city, but it's got a small town feel. So our issue is, if we were to go to a professional recording studio, that means we're either going to Tampa or we're going to St. Petersburg, which is for us, that's an hour, hour and 10 minutes away.
Right.
So we'd have to plan all that drive time, all that gas to get out there, bring all of our stuff out there. And just, I think for us, it's just easier that we have this at home to where we don't have to go anywhere. We're here. We've got everything we need, all the equipment we need to record a good album.
Amen, brother. That was Alex, by the way.
That makes a lot of sense. That's really good. Well, getting back to the music, the first question is going to be kind of long, but I'm hoping that you stick with me to the very end so that I can kind of get a little bit of a clarification on it. Some people might know this, but some people might not, that the word mortify or mortified means to feel embarrassed, ashamed, or humiliated, or to subdue the body or its needs and desires by self-denial or discipline. And as I was listening to this song, I was trying to figure out exactly what you were trying to convey through the song, but I'm at a crossroad between two different ideas. In the song, you talk about the idea of your body being buried in the ground or wanting it to be put into the ground, and you also say, you can't bring me down because I'm already buried in the ground. Are you trying to convey the idea that because you're sin, you're embarrassed of how you're living your life and that kind of aspect? Or are you saying that you're burying yourself to the ground in a way of discipline against the devil and against sin, and following after the idea found in Ephesians 4:22-24 that says, the idea that you were taught with your former way of life to put off your old self, which is corrupted by deceitful desires, and to be made new in the attitude of your minds, to put on the new self, which is created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness? Or am I totally off altogether in terms of the meaning behind the song? What were you trying to portray when you wrote that?
Yeah, you're very close. Putting off the old man, we're definitely within that theme, but it's a little finer point to that. The truth is, getting into the actual word itself, the word, the album's name, or latest album is named Mortified, and the song we're talking about is Mortified, the title track, which the word mortify, it does need, of course, in the English it means subdued. In the Old English, which is a much broader language, it actually means to kill, subdue, or kill. And it's used in our language many times. The word mortify or mortis is the old word in Latin. It's the Latin root word is mortify, which it means to kill. And it's used obviously in the Bible, and that's where in English we get our words mortician, or, and you've heard that word mortician, or what's the other one, mortification, though it does mean, to terrify and all that, but it actually really means to subdue by death. And in the Old King James, you can see that word used a lot, actually, where the newer translations would just say subdue or something like that. But the word mortified really does mean to put to death. And of course, in Romans 8:13 says that if you live after the flesh, you shall surely die. But if you do mortify or kill or subdue the deeds of the body, you shall live. And this is talking about in the spirit, living in the spirit versus living in the flesh. And of course, as the word has many themes throughout about subduing the flesh by self-control, subduing the flesh, and even killing the flesh, which that word mortified is. And the true thing is, if you really listen to the album and you get where I say you can't bring me down because I'm already buried in the ground. If a believer has truly surrendered to that extent where they're really living a life that they're in control of those flesh faculties, and they really have another scripture says to reckon the flesh dead. If we've really done that, then life does change for us, because I'm really speaking out to the enemy at that moment when I'm speaking out and saying, hey, you can't bring me down because I'm already buried. So the only thing you have on me, enemy, is the flesh and the tendencies of the flesh. So if I'm in control of those tendencies and I'm living in the Spirit, you're going to have a rough time causing problems from my life, you know. So anyway, that's kind of what the song is about. And the idea of being mortified is to really being sold out to Christ and 100% submitted to his will.
Very nice. Now, another song that I really love is Turn Up Your Love, and it's a beautiful modern worship song with a cry to God to fill you with more of him, to turn up his love in you. In the chorus you say, I want the real, I want the best, cover me by your blood, and then fill me up so that I can see everything you've done, not by power, not by might, but by your word we will survive. Give us this day our daily bread, and every day that comes again, turn up your love in me. Could you talk more about this song and share what was going on in your life that made you realize you needed more of him?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You nailed it right there, because the song is very self-explanatory. As I grow in the Lord, I keep finding that I have things that I need to surrender, and I keep finding I need to submit more of my life and surrender more of myself to him and grow in him. And it's funny because how this song actually came about, I wrote the song pretty fast. I was coming home, and I was listening to a radio program, and there was an interview. And this guy was talking about how he came to know the Lord, and he described his experience with finding the Lord as if he said he didn't know what happened. You know, he said he just felt like God just turned up the love in him. And I heard him say that, and this was, you know, on a radio interview, and I was just blown away. I was like, turn up your love. Wow. And I couldn't wait to get home. I was in a hurry to get home because I was like, the words were coming to me, and I got home and I wrote the song within a half hour because I was just like so excited and so filled with that kind of message. Just turn up your love, Lord. Because my first thought was, Lord, that's what I want. I want more of you. I want you to turn up whatever love I got. Turn it up and let's see what happens, you know. And so that's how it happened, and it's still going strong.
That's really cool. I love how you can get inspiration from pretty much anywhere when it comes to writing songs. So that's really great that you're able to take that concept and turn it into a great song that's a beautiful worship song to God.
Man, thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Take Me Home seems to share the story of the prodigal son. And in the song, you shared that no matter where you were in life, no matter how much you tried to hide from God, God never stopped searching for you and meeting you where you were at. Finally, you came to realize that you can become free through Christ, and you finally asked him to come to take you home. Could you talk about the idea a little bit more and share with someone who might be hiding and running from God the way that you were, how they can be free and come back home to God?
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty interesting thing, because that is truly my testimony. I was actually brought up in a Christian home, and I went to church, and all through as a young man, I was taught the word. And so I got to the late teen years, and I started making some selfish decisions, and I got away from God. And I really never had a full surrender, because when you kind of grow up around all this, you kind of take it for granted, and you just don't have as much, sometimes for me anyway, as much seriousness about it as I could have, because you grow up in it, so you just kind of take it for granted. So I went out into the world and really rebelled and just went away from anything that I was taught. And it wasn't until a certain point in my life that, you know, I knew, it was like the Holy Spirit just haunted me. And I just knew that it wasn't about me wanting him or not wanting him. It was about him truly wanting me. Yeah. And when I came to that realization that he wanted me so desperately, and here I was running from him and away from him, and that idea that somebody, a God could love me that much, even though I was unlovable and running from him, it was that turned me and made me say, okay, you know what, I don't know where home is. Because when I left, I literally left home. I literally ran away from home and left my Christian roots and everything. And so to him, when I was saying, take me home, it was like, I don't know where home is, but wherever it is, Lord, it's with you. And so that's what home was, you know, in the story. So that's kind of the gist of that one, yeah.
Awesome. Now, Fade Away is the song that I personally related to the most, because despite knowing the goodness and love of God, Sometimes I still struggle with the idea that God allows pain and death and bad things to happen to a good person or in the world in general. And it's easy to just say, let it fade away, but in reality, it's a lot more complicated than that. Could you talk about the idea behind this song and how a person like me who wrestles with the idea of why God doesn't do something in the tough times to be able to let go and to let it fade away and to ultimately trust God?
Yeah, absolutely. It is hard for everybody, I think, at some point. And there are some things that just kind of hit so close that you do start to ask the questions, and we sometimes in Christianity we think to be faithful is to not question God, but we know that He's a God that understands. He said He understands the feeling of our infirmities. That means all of our weaknesses. He was here at once, and He had all those weaknesses, and He was tempted on every point. So if anyone understands, it's Him. So yes, we can ask Him, and He will answer. And I went through it myself several times. But in this particular case, when I wrote that song, it was the day after the Mandalay Bay shootings.
Oh, wow.
And it was the day after. And honestly, it was interesting because, as I'm listening, on Facebook and the media and all the news, it was bombarding, and a lot of people were asking those hard questions like, well, if God's so good, then why? And all these innocent people, hurt and killed. And so, and I myself said, well, the funny thing about this is the first thought I had is like, how long will it take for us to forget? How long will it take for it to fade away out of our memories like it always does? I mean, if you go back and think of 9/11, you think about how we think about it now. I mean, it's faded out of our memories. And as humans, our human nature is to push those hard things away, and our human nature is to just let it fade away. And that is our human nature. So in the song, I'm not really saying, hey, let's just all let it fade away. I'm not really saying that as much as I'm saying, the question is, this world is a hard place to live in, and we do just let it fade away. In a way, as I'm singing it, I'm almost sarcastic because I'm saying, so just let it fade away, like we always do, guys. It's going to fade away. We're going to forget about this. We're going to start talking about this in a couple of years. If you mention Mandalay Bay, someone might go, what happened there? If you mention 9/11 or if you mention any tragedy, we don't make it a part of us, and we really, most of the time, don't do anything about it. We don't change our lives, and we say we do. It's almost like a New Year's resolution that never really happens. So that song's a little bit deeper than just saying, let's fade it away, but it's almost like telling on us and saying, you know what, this is what we do,
Yeah, definitely. The final song, and probably my favorite track musically, is the song Blinded by Me. In this song, you talk about how sometimes we get in our own way spiritually. We're in this sense blinded by yourself. Could you talk more about this idea and share how one might get in one's way instead of letting God lead?
Yeah, you nailed it right there. That was absolutely the lesson in the song is that we do get in our own way. The only problem is when we get in our way, so often, at least in my experience, I don't know. When I'm wrong and I think I'm right, or when I think I'm okay and I'm really not okay, there just hasn't been enough repentance in my life, and there hasn't been enough devotion time in my life. There hasn't been enough something of getting closer to Him. This song is hopefully going to wake someone up and say, hey, I can be blinded by myself here. I need to realize that I need to stay humble. And so that's what kind of like the song really means, is that's why it says, teach me and take me there. Take me to that place where I realize where I've erred and where I can repent and where I can grow in you,
Yeah, definitely. Now, you guys have performed at a lot of cool places over the years. Do you have any favorite places to play or memorable moments while you were on the road?
Oh, we've played a lot of different places. I don't know if anybody got a place that they've played that stands out. I know Alex
I haven't played here very long.
but no. But we've all had like places. I know this one story, and it's kind of funny because again, this is sort of like a Florida story. But when we play, sometimes we play places that are very professional and very straight, and very good. And sometimes we just play places that want us to play, and we don't ask a lot of questions going in because we really want to minister to a wide variety of people. So a lot of times we get in ourselves in some situations. So there's times when they'll say, yeah, come on, we'll play, and we'll show up and there'll be carpet, and they're like, yeah, you can play on these pallets or on that carpet. You can play over there in the grass, and it's kind of like, okay, there's no stage. And then sometimes we play and we get surprised. One in particular that I have to talk about is like this one guy, we get a call and they say they're having this little thing and they want us to play. And so right away we're really thinking, okay, there's going to be a couple of pallets. But then we get there and we pull in, and it was the biggest stage we had ever played on in our life with the awesome PA, and it was the best show. We were actually opening for a national touring act and everything, and we didn't know. So it was like, it was such a God thing, because here we were kind of like, this will just be another, we needed a check. And a lot of times when you're humbled, it's not because you just got a big, great thing happen. It's usually when something bad happens. But we were humbled by this, because now we got to play on the stage, and we really thought that it was just going to be a little, kind of a little thing,
It's a rare event down here if we get a show and it's, a huge stage.
Yeah.
It's because this Christian scene down here is not doing so hot right now. So
we're keeping it going.
We're trying to keep it going as best as we can. But a lot of the places we do play, people have no idea what they're doing. Usually it show up and you're playing on, concrete, but, God calls us to go out no matter where we're at, and we're called to do our best and to be at that level of professionalism and to be the best that we can be for Christ. So regardless if it's a huge stage, if it's pallets, if it's a hay trailer, we'll play on anything.
We've done that.
That will, as long as we glorify the name of Christ and bring glory to the kingdom, we'll play as hard as we can.
Amen.
Yeah, exactly. Though, honestly, we have been blessed to play certain places, certain really good shows before. One of my favorite shows we played was, I believe, it was Generations Church. Generations Church. It was a huge event, and I remember, we got there. We didn't necessarily know what to expect, but we get there. Of course, it's a huge stage, and they take really good care of us, and it's great. And on the same stage playing that day was J.J. Weeks and Austin French. These two artists who, they're on the radio, they're very big. And I remember after we had played our show, we got to hang out with the guys from J.J. Weeks and Austin French, and we just played Frisbee with these guys and played little silly games. And it's funny because, wow, I'm hanging out with these guys. I hear you on the radio all the time.
And I'm a regular dude.
And now I'm here with you. And we were like, wow, they're regular people. And it kind of, for me, it demystified. It kind of demystified the whole experience for me. Like it was kind of defining. It was like, oh wow, these people are just regular people. They're regular people.
They play Frisbee. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, a lot of times we get these big super egos that we think that these guys are like completely out of touch and that they just play these great shows and then they just go to their trailers and they don't interact or do anything. But it's really cool that you can find them being humble to be upfront and to play Frisbee and to interact with fans and just be regular human beings. A lot of times we think a lot bigger than what they actually are.
Absolutely. That's true. Yeah.
Continuing on that thought, speaking of performances, you joked in one of your posts online that you have a big show coming up. You're opening for the opener for the headliner. In the grand scheme of things, as long as the gospel is proclaimed, it really doesn't matter what order you perform in. But as a band, do you guys strive to be big enough to be a headlining band that has a household name, or do you prefer to be more of an unknown and small band?
Well, here's my thing, okay? That when it comes to headlining, especially down here, okay? When it comes to a headlining band, all right? Headlining bands, you think, a normal big town, so 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Okay, headlining bands down here is like 8 at the latest, okay? And going along what we said earlier where, we're in a retirement community, okay? People are old, so when it comes to 8 o'clock, it's bedtime. So a lot of shows where we headline, quote unquote, where we play at 8 o'clock, the venue is empty.
Yeah.
So my whole thing, and what I've gone about in different bands that I've played with, is that the best spot to be in is number 2.
Yeah.
So even just to be an opener from an opener, that's fine too, because that's when you get the most exposure, is being right smack dab in the middle, because no one, is leaving. And we played shows where we were the headliner, quote unquote, that we got up to play and everybody's gone.
Yeah.
And it's just a preference, especially for for Florida. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and on that particular case, when I posted that post, it was funny because everybody was asking me when we're playing, are we playing at this time or that time? So I kind of was jokingly letting them know we're playing earlier in the day, guys, but that's how that worked out.
Yeah, I just thought that was really cool, and I wanted to bring that out because a lot of bands don't have that kind of joking spirit, and they really take performing so seriously that if they don't get to a certain spot, they have this huge meltdown and their egos are torn, and it's like the end of the world. So it's cool that you guys are humble enough to just kind of accept whatever God lets you have in terms of your performance and where you go.
Yeah, we don't actively seek out headlining spots.
Yeah, we really don't.
We like middle ground.
Yeah. Wherever they put us is fine. We do want to play in front of the maximum amount of people.
Yeah,
hopefully,
absolutely.
minister to as many as we can. But it seems that we always get that. I mean, the Lord always opens the doors, and we get it. Even here, I would say, like Alex was saying, sometimes it almost seems that it's not going to be that, because there are some circumstances sometimes that comes along, especially the local shows around here.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Lord seems to find ways to give us more and more to do for His ministry, and it's wonderful.
Great. Well, getting back to your music, you released another CD called Temporary Things. Could you give us an overview of this CD and why you named it Temporary Things and the meaning behind the song?
Temporary things, basically, it's like the word says, there's a straight gate and there's a broad gate. There's two gates. There's things in this world that are all about life. There's things that will lead you to death. There's two things. Everywhere you go, you see a parallel of two things. And we're living between two planes. We're living between the temporary things and the eternal things. Mm-hmm. So I use that as a ministry tool to kind of, I minister to people about examining their lives and kind of to see, if you look at your life and you see a lot of temporary things that aren't going to be eternal, then this is something you need to evaluate and see how you can change it, because there are temporary things and there are eternal things. So the song and the album, Temporary Things, is kind of a commentary on really paying attention to what is temporary. And, of course, the album cover itself is a nurse holding a baby, and that really just points to the fact that we are temporary. This life itself is temporary here, and there is an eternal life as well. But just to remind people that keep in check that your life should not be a temporary life. It should be an eternal life, and what you have in your life should be eternal things, not temporary things. So that's kind of what that's all about. Yeah.
Now, the first track on Temporary Things, called Sinking Sand, follows, I think, pretty well with the wise man and the foolish man story found in Matthew 7:24-27. Could you talk more about this song and share why it's important to have a solid spiritual foundation?
Oh, yeah. That nails it again. I mean, that's what it's all about. There's a line in the song that says, "You might see me smiling when the waves are crashing in." And I love that line, because walking in the will of God, living a Christ foundational life really does, and it's the same thing as you said, the story, the parable of the wise man that built his house upon the rock, and then the unwise man that built it on the sand. When the wave came and the winds blew, the man that was on the sand, he couldn't hang. He couldn't hold up. And so really this is the whole thing. It's important. And it's just like when you think about when tragedy does strike, and if you are the kind of person that has built you built your castle on the sand, proverbially, if you are a person like that doesn't have the kind of strong faith, you're going to fall to pieces when things come. And the Bible guarantees that in this world we will find trouble. Mm-hmm. So because we have the guarantee that trouble is coming, and it does come, if we don't have that solid foundation and that peace that we can have, the word calls it peace that passes understanding. Mm-hmm. Because even though the winds do blow and the waves crash down, it passes understanding. And of course, that's why the line reads in the song, "You might see me smiling when the waves are crashing in." Because you might just catch me going, I'm not worried about this. God knew this was coming. So hopefully that is what the message gets across, that people understand that if you do live a life that's dedicated and truly trusting the Lord with your whole heart, you can go through some hard times and still kind of crack a smile,
Yeah, I love that. Now, "Do You Believe" is written from the perspective of Jesus. In the song, Jesus asked the question, "Do you believe that I turned the water into wine, gave the sight to the blind, let the captives free? I gave you everything you need. Mountains crumbled into the sea. I bled for those who received me. Do you believe?" Could you talk about where this idea came to write it from the perspective of Jesus, and share how this question was not only asked of the disciples and the people back in that time, but is still a relevant question for each one of us today?
Oh, yeah. Do you believe? I've always loved songs that were written from this perspective of Jesus, and I don't really think we have enough of them out there. I think of a few, and usually they're around Easter. You hear them, I think of one of the Third Day songs I used to listen to, "Thief," and about the perspective of Jesus on the cross. Yeah. And that's very inspiring, because to get the idea that we can see through Jesus' eyes, it's kind of hard to do that, but every once in a while we get a chance to do that. And when I'm singing that song, it's really like he's saying that through me. Do you believe? But it's not a normal question because the question itself, it seems simple. Do you believe? That's why there's such a long list of things there that to believe in. These are things that the Lord has done and accomplished, that have changed the ability for us to know Him and to come into His presence. So it takes me to the point where the Lord had asked Peter, who do you say that I am? And because, everyone was saying, oh yeah, I believe he's this, he's that, and what is he really? And Peter had the best answer. I mean, we know that. And the thing is that that's the real question. Do you believe like that? It also takes me to the word, the story of the centurion, the faith of the centurion. When Jesus was, there doing these great miracles and all these people were believing on Him, but then this centurion that just stood far off and just said, no, if you just tell me that my servant is healed, you don't have to come to my house, you don't have to do any special thing, you don't have to spit in the clay and make some mud, or you don't have to, all you say is, I trust you at your word, Lord. If you say it's done, I'll go back to work, and I don't even have to go home and check on this boy. And then he didn't either. He went right back to work. The Lord said it was so, and he found out later, of course, his servants told him that that very time that he talked to Jesus and asked Him is when the healing took place. You see, there's a faith there. And Jesus even said, no greater faith have I seen. And there's a faith. So when I'm saying, do you believe, I'm not just saying, like you hear a lot of people say, oh, I believe he was a prophet, or I believe he was this, or I believe he was that. There's a faith, there's a standard of faith there. It's powerful.
Yeah, that is very powerful. Now, getting back to the CD, You Are God is probably one of my favorite tracks on the CD, and it shares just how good and amazing God is. Could you talk more about this song and the concept of God's greatness?
Yes, absolutely. We were just playing that song a couple minutes ago before you come. I love that song. It's just, for me, when I sing those words, it's a proclamation of who God is, and I just want to tell Him who He is and just say to Him, you are God. I know who you are. It's really just it's really just a rocking, fast praise song. It's really just, we're just praising the Lord straightforward and just rocking out at the same time, which I think is a great mixture. Yeah. That's pretty much the gist on that one.
Awesome. Now, on a side note, did you know that your intro to You Are God is almost identical to the intro of Wizard of Id by Sky Park? Do you like it when people kind of compare you to other bands, or do you think that other bands should be compared to you?
Well, first I'll say, I think that when someone hears something so they've listened that closely, I think that's a compliment in itself that they've actually listened that closely. But to me, it's just confirmation that I might be doing something right. Because if I'm doing something somebody else is doing, then they're having some success with it. It's not that I ever tried to rip anybody off, but somehow we had the same thought process, and that's pretty cool. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a convergence. It's natural. Okay. When it comes to music, I've played all forms of music, and there are natural things that songwriters do that just are going to emulate each other. And it's one of those things where it's a coincidence, or it could be a God wink moment. You never know. When you find two songs that, yes, they're similar. Well, what's funny is when Brian sent me the questions that we're doing now. I went and looked up the band and I listened to the song, and I think just for me, just that a comparison can be made, like Brian said, it's good for us. I kind of feel that as humans, we naturally make comparisons. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have the people that we like to listen to, and we have influences. So when you play music, you're going to emulate your influences, where you listen to a band over and over and you say, wow, especially in my case, I like Brian Marshall he's the bassist from Creed, from Alter Bridge, and a bunch of other little things. Mm-hmm. And for me, when I was learning, I wanted to emulate his style. So when I'm playing, I'm emulating that style. So naturally, when you're writing music and when you're preparing a full song, your influences are going to come out, and they're going to have natural comparisons to different bands. So it's not one to where I'm going to say, oh, people should be comparing, our music to their music, like our music is more superior. I just think it's a natural thing that happens, and that we should embrace it.
Yes, I agree with that, yeah. It's true.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. So I just thought that was a cool coincidence. I'm dating myself when I mentioned Sky Park, but I heard the intro and I was like, I did a double take because I thought for a second you were covering that song and then it went in a different direction, but it was just like an eye opener. Like I was like, does he know that he almost has that exactly as the same as Drew as Sky Park? And I just thought I'd bring that up.
Cool. Good riffs sometimes transcend.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Great minds think alike. Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things I love most about your group is your heart for worship. It's evident in the songs that you write, and I was wondering if you could talk about the idea of true worship and what that looks like for you.
Kind of one of my things I talk about a lot is what worship I believe really is. And I start, honestly, John 4:23, is really where we get our definition from worship, because, worshiping the Lord in spirit and in truth is, the word actually says not necessarily in the synagogues, not necessarily in church, not necessarily in a place or this place or that place, but worshiping Him in spirit and in truth. And the word says that the Lord seeks those that would worship Him that way. And so, to me, I really separate those words. You hear a lot about music in church, and it's called praise and worship, or it's called worship music. Yeah. And the truth is, I guess I would call music praise, but I wouldn't call music worship, because I believe worship is what you do after you turn your amps off. I believe worship is what you do and what you don't do, is your devotion to the Lord, decisions you make, staying close, walking close with Him, allowing yourself to be in full submission to His will and His word, and growing in Him and becoming very intimately acquainted with Him, and even sometimes making sacrifices to make sure you can get close to Him. These things, I believe, are worship much, much more than just standing at the altar with our hands raised. I mean, He said He would pour out His Spirit upon all men, but that's what He's doing. And that's part of what He's doing. Worship should be what we're doing. And it's not necessarily music. I guess it could be, but I think a lot of times today and these days we focus on music as being worship, when really it's not. I prefer to think of it as something you do after you turn your amps off.
Now, speaking of worship, I came across a post that said that you attended and performed at a biker church. Could you talk about this church, what it's about, and how you got connected with the Motorcycle Association?
The biker church is CMA. It's a Christian Biker Association. It's a wonderful association. It's a wonderful church that we belong to. We actually are. We're none of us in this band are bikers, so we don't go around driving bikes or anything like that. But it was just a total God thing that we got invited to. They knew of us. They'd heard us play places, and some of the bikers enjoyed our music, and so we started doing services with them. And so this is something we do very often, and it's a wonderful thing. The best thing about these guys, we've learned a lot about biker ministries, and the fact is, these guys go to places none of us would ever go. Most ministers would never go. These guys go into places where sometimes it's dangerous, and they go minister to people that most Christians wouldn't even give a second look. And these guys go into actual biker gangs, and they sit and they pray with people and they talk with people. And the thing with bikers is bikers that don't know the Lord, that is, the ones that are in gangs and such, it's a very volatile lifestyle, and it's a very rough lifestyle. And it's amazing that they live on the edge a lot. And so at any moment, the dangerous lives that they live could end their life. So when you start to talk about eternity, they usually listen. Yeah. And it's amazing the conversions we've seen. It's amazing the ministry that we've seen from these people. And so to be a part of it has been a powerful ministry, and we're just honored to be a part of it. So that's pretty much the gist of all that, yeah.
That's really cool. What a great opportunity that you have, and a way to kind of give them the fuel to keep going and to do what they do on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going down. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Now, the hardcore fans know this, but not many people know that you have a third CD that you wrote and recorded called For Your Sin, but it was pulled from distribution due to poor quality recording. Now that you have the ability to record and produce from your home, is there a possibility of releasing it and recording it from your house?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those songs are still on the shelf, and we're still looking at them, trying to decide where they fit. We will probably trickle them in as we write other songs and when they're going to fit the context of the albums and everything as we grow, as we move forward. We're definitely going to be bringing some of those back. We may rewrite and add some parts. Actually, to be honest, on On Temporary Things, the song Sinking Sand was actually on our first album. We re-recorded that for Temporary Things. And then also the song Burning on the Inside that's on Mortified, that was supposed to be on our first album. We had that originally recording on our first album. So those songs we're already trickling them in, you know.
Gotcha. So it's pretty much anybody that has the original one is going to be a collector's item someday.
Let's hope so, yeah. $2.
Now, I also saw a picture in cartoon form that said Remnants Altar Comic Book Adventures. Is there really a comic book about the band, or if not, are there any plans to eventually create one?
Well, what's yours, Matt?
Yeah, Matt. Actually, there are. Because I'm the artist behind that picture, and as I was making it, we kind of discussed it, and we thought, it would be really cool if it was an actual Remnants Altar comic book, and we figured that'd be a great promotion. That'd be just awesome. It'd be fun, and so we decided, that's definitely something we want to pursue. So it's in the works, definitely.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to go along with the music. Yeah. You think about the different medias. We make music videos or whatever. We make lyric videos, and we record music, and we do all these things. And it seems almost strange that we don't do more. But I remember going back in the day when I was a kid, and I had Kiss comics and other bands who did comics, and I think, hey, you know what? Why not? So
we're also really nerdy in this band.
Yeah, we are kind of nerds. We're a little bit geeky. Some of us more than others.
There we go. This is the only one that's not nerdy.
Yeah, true.
Now, kind of continuing on that theme of going back to old school, on your Facebook page, one of the coolest things that I saw was a T-shirt where you turned the band into an old school Nintendo game. Could you talk about where this idea for the shirt came and what else you have in terms of merchandise that is available for purchase?
That's me. That's Alex.
That's Alex.
I do a side business, a graphic design side business.
And he's a geek, too.
I'm going to shamelessly plug flyersbyalex.com.
Flyers by Alex. Flyers by Alex.
But it was one of those things that came about. I actually, in my last band, when I was about maybe 2 years ago, I was just starting to learn Photoshop. And, I went online, and like I said, I'm a geek, so I like old school Nintendo stuff. So I typed in, how to Photoshop, 8-bit real-life pictures. And so I got, a template, or I got, step-by-step on how to do it. So I did it with my first band. And I thought it was so cool, so I figured, hey, let's do it with the band. And I just started as a picture where I was like, I had a, picture of a Nintendo cartridge, and and I had the layout, and I was able to make the layout to where, I was able to put a picture of Brian on it, and just made it look like an old school Nintendo game. And the idea of it, putting it on a shirt, just basically, we started a Threadless page.
That's
RemnantsAltar.threadless.com.
Threadless.com.
So we started the Threadless page, and when I first started it, because like I said, I came in about 6 months ago, so it was kind of, when I came in, we wanted to do more, okay? And this was a thing that I had done with my other band. I created the Threadless page, so I wanted to do it with this band. I really didn't have anything too much to do. I had the logo. I created the logo as well for the band, the RAR logo. And
I was going to tell you that in a minute.
So I had that, so I put that on a couple shirts, and for me, I just wanted to have just a plethora of designs for people to come and look at. So I did the Nintendo design, and I did, one looks like a Game Boy screen, just because there was stuff that I was having fun doing.
Yeah.
And I just kind of implemented it into my band stuff. And the whole thing is like I said, nerdiness is a near and dear thing to my heart. So all my friends, all my friends are nerds. So when I design something like that, it gets attention. They go, wow, that's great, and I was kind of hoping that would translate into, people wanting to buy the shirt or wanting to buy pretty much anything. And Threadless is such a great site. You can buy anything on there. You can buy a coffee mug with that on it. You can buy a shower curtain, so it's just one of those things where we wanted to have something to where somebody would, think, hey, that looks great.
It's very
I'm going to put it on
eye-catching.
something, and that's just basically what it comes along to. And for us, merchandise is a thing that we're just starting to come into. We actually just placed an order a few weeks ago last week, for 50 shirts and for a few hats, so that we can have available at shows. It's something that we've always wanted to get into. We want people to have something physical, of who we are and what we're about, to show that it's a ministry for Christ. So that way, it's a talking point. Somebody can say, "Wow, that's a Nintendo cartridge. Is that real?" And it's like, "No, man, that's Remnants Altar. You know, they're a Christian band out of Spring Hill, Florida.
Yeah.
That's just how we wanted to do it."
Side note about Alex. You know, we knew Alex for a while. Like he said several times here that he's kind of new to the band, and you know, he's been in for 6 months or so. And the thing is with Alex, we've known Alex for a long time, and he's actually helped us in the past when we needed, when our other bass player had to quit the band, and he came in and did shows. He's been a great Christian brother to us, and so it's one of the reasons why he's in the band. But he actually, at that point where we were looking for a new logo, we needed a new brand, and he came up with this really killer brand, this really killer logo that we have, and he just kind of pulled out of nowhere. He just kind of said, "Hey, I've been thinking about you guys, and I got a logo." Didn't charge us or anything, and that's his business. And he was like, "Yeah, I just got a logo." You know, he asked me if I'd be interested, and I was like, "Yeah." And it was amazing because he just pulled this killer logo that I couldn't ask for anything better. So we just want to really say thank you, you know, to Alex for not only just doing that, but now being our bass player, which is pretty cool.
Well, I felt it's funny, and then when I talked to Brian and everybody in the band, and it was probably about a year ago.
Yeah.
Where I was in another band, you know, semi-successful band, but things weren't going right, and I felt God moving me, and it was one of those things where I didn't know in what capacity that the movement was. At the time, I thought, well, maybe it's just to help these guys out. At the time, I was running trying to start a Christian concert ministry where we go into venues and take care of all the concerts. It's called Elevate Your Faith. It's defunct right now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I thought maybe God was just having me try and help them out and find them shows, and you know, and like Brian said, when it came to the logo, it was just a thing that I did, and I was like, you know, I seen these guys, and I felt drawn towards them, and I wanted them to have the best they could have. Okay, and you know, they didn't have a logo. I'd say they would post, you know, stuff with Remnants Altar, which is fine. But me, you know, as being a graphic designer and a guy who's, you know, in marketing, like, I knew they needed a brand. They needed something that would stick out. So God was calling me. I thought maybe that was it. But it wasn't until, you know, things went south in my band, and I said, hey, you know, I think this is probably where I need to be.
And we got him.
Yeah.
I'm here now. You know, the rest is history.
The rest is really history, yeah. But yeah, we got him now. He's not going nowhere.
Well, we're very thankful for you being a part of that, and your graphics are amazing. It definitely caught my attention, so I'm hoping that I can maybe somehow get a shirt and use that as a witnessing tool as well, because I really love that concept of, you know, it draws the attention to even the non-believer to be like, oh, that's a Nintendo, and then you're like, no, it's a Christian band, and then you have a talking point that you can kind of, you know.
Absolutely, and that's what it is. And we just threw a bunch of blank of stuff. There's another one that's on there that's a Jeet Kune Do logo. Okay?
Yeah.
Now these guys in the band, okay, Matt and Brian, they're expert martial artists, okay, and they have their own dojo where they teach things. So it's, for me, I kind of wanted to show something that's a part of what they do. You know, Brian teaches Jeet Kune Do, and I saw this logo, I wanted to put it in there. So it's just, yeah. I think what I designed for those was kind of who we are.
Yeah. Okay.
It was just a little of everything that shows this is who we are as a band. We're made up of different things, but we're here for the same purpose.
Amen. And it's a great talking point.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, if you want to go get a shirt, like I said, remnantsaltar.threadless.com, or if you want to get, you know, like I said, there's tons of things on there. You can get, you know, if you want to have a throw blanket with our, you know, name on it.
Yeah, they'll do anything.
Beach towel, you know, that's another one.
Sure, whatever.
Is there anywhere else that people can go online and find your music or to connect with you?
Yes, actually, you can go to, well, we sell on CD Baby. You can listen on Spotify. You can go listen for free on YouTube, iTunes, Amazon Music. We're on Reverb Nation. We're also on Deezer. We're on just every digital platform. We're actually out there in some way, shape, or Pandora. Just pretty much everybody. I don't know. I can't name them all, but they're. Whatever you do, if you just type in Remnants Altar, you can also visit our Facebook just by going remnantsaltar.com. That's another one that will take you directly to the Facebook. And all the links are usually posted constantly there. So if you scroll through, you will find.
Facebook is like, it's our hub.
Yeah, it's basically our center. Yeah.
It's one of those things where websites are becoming more attuned towards social media. So that's basically, if you want to know anything about Remnants Altar, remnantsaltar.com, and it'll just go straight to the Facebook page.
We've kind of toyed with the idea about maybe eventually, if we see fit, getting an actual website in the future. But right now, Facebook has really served us well, and it's been our main way of people seeing us and us letting people know what we're doing.
Right on. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, what's in the future for Remnants Altar?
Oh, boy, I wish I had a time machine. I could tell you. But no, honestly, for me, I know for this band, the first thing I think we would all say would be we want to go where God sends us. Yep. More than anything else, we want to be obedient to His call. We want to be truly obedient to Him. The skills, abilities, and the talents, even the purposes that we all have, we want to use them for Christ, to glorify His name as much, as often, as most powerful we can, and really just move forward. We have plans for many more albums. We've got songs on the shelf. We've got songs we're writing right now. We're actually recording right now another album. We're taking our time trying to get it right. It's going to be a little more progressive than the last two. It's still going to be us. It's still definitely going to be us, but we've got new ideas. And so we'll just see what the Lord has for us, really.
I think the future for us, too, is going to be, I know we want to portray, and this is something we've been talking about a lot with our band, is professionalism and being the best that we can be for Christ.
Amen.
I know a lot of bands, especially some local bands, they're comfortable with just, doing whatever. They're comfortable with mediocrity. And I think for us that we've been coming to a place where we don't want to be mediocre for Christ. We can shine the light of Christ through our music. Amen. And my whole thing is, especially, being a professional musician, it's, for me, when I see bands that come up and they're unorganized, disorganized, they don't know exactly their art form, to me, I'm turned off, okay? And I'm like, okay, these guys don't care about what they're doing. They don't care about their ministry. It just turns me off. And for me, I think trying to be the best, now I'm not saying that we're the best, that we're the most amazing band ever. I'm just saying that we strive to be the best that we can be. Yeah. And just so that we can bring the light of Christ to everyone.
And I think that really means, for us, part of our ministry is not just, when we go places, we want to, first of all, conduct ourselves in a manner that truly is Christ-like. We want to treat people with a Christ-like attitude. And then when we do perform on stage, we try to make sure we've done the work, and we try to make sure everything is as it should be. And I know no one's perfect, but to set an example, this just happens to be something we're experiencing a lot here where we're at, but to set the example for others, of course, obviously in every way, in the way we conduct ourselves, the way we speak, the things we do, things we will not do, but also in the music itself, and the excellence of the music is making absolutely sure that if you're bringing something to the King, you want to make sure it's clean, and good. So I think that's what Alex is kind of getting at.
You brought up a great point. I know that a lot of non-Christians have a really stereotypical view of Christian music. They think that it's just really watered down or it's kind of corny. It doesn't really have any kind of upper appeal. And when bands like you guys that are striving for excellence come and rock their faces off, they're like, wow, that's Christian music. And then they kind of get a whole different perspective of what the idea of what Christian music really is. And it kind of changes their world and kind of gets them curious about, well, if these guys are awesome, who else is out there that they can kind of find? And then it's a progression where ultimately they're listening to more Christian music, and who knows what they can kind of pull out of that just from your superiority. They pop the CD player in and the words minister to them and they become a Christian, or something in their life gets changed for the better. So that's really a great thing to strive for.
Amen, brother. I mean, that's really where our heart is. The word says that we are to come ye out from among them and be separate. So come out from among them. And I know that one of the contexts there is that we're talking about the lifestyle, sinful lifestyle versus a righteous lifestyle. But we believe we can apply that to everything we do in the Lord. And coming out from among them and being separate, that's kind of what we've done in our music too. Like I said before, we're not really far on the heavy side. We're not really far on the super light side. We're right in the middle. We really feel like the Lord set us apart, obviously spiritually, but even in the kind of music that we do, and so as we're doing that, we want to do that very thing, because we don't want to be the poor man's music. No one wants to be the poor. Christian rock should not be the poor man's rock music. It should be above that. If we're supposed to be, as Christians, we're the ones that are supposed to be the example, not secular radio. Actually, we're supposed to be setting the standards, not be following the standards. So that's really what we're doing. A lot of people, I've been told that, oh, you guys need to drop D, and you guys need to go heavier, and you guys need to do this, or you guys need to do that. You know, either go all the way to one side or the other. And I don't feel like that follows through with the word when it says to come out from among them and be separate. So if we are separate, then I feel like we're going to do the will of God where we're at.
I think too as well is that we want to, at least for me, when I was a brand new Christian, my thing that I almost prided myself on was that I could find 3 Christian bands that sounded like a secular band. Somebody says, oh, can you find somebody that sounds like Tool? And then I'd say a couple of bands that sound like Tool. For me, now that I've become more grown up, I've aged a little bit, I want to start flipping that. I want to start going, when people listen to secular bands, oh, they sound like this Christian band. I want to flip-flop that. That's how I feel, where we need to be the example when it comes to music in the world, so that they know Christians can make the best music out there. And unfortunately, some bands, like I said, they don't want to do that. But for us, I think that's part of our calling, and that's part of our ministry, is just to be the best that we can.
Yeah, we definitely need more bands like you to set that standard and to take Christian music to the next level.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's a great compliment.
Yeah. Well, how can we pray for you guys?
I think you can pray for our scene down here.
Yeah.
We're struggling to find venues. We have a couple of here and there, but for us, it's almost like we have to create our own scene. We have to find a place to play and then set it up. And we're lucky enough that another thing that I've come take on as a ministry and as a passion is I want to find every single Christian band, every single Christian artist in the Central Florida area, and I made a Facebook page, Facebook group to find as much people as I can, because if we don't stick together and we don't fight
and network together,
if we don't do that, our scene is going to die.
The sad thing about the scene down here, we really want prayer, because what we've seen is the churches, they will have a big touring act. A lot of places will have what we call a sure thing. Everybody's going for the sure thing, and it really kills the local bands, and it kills the local scene, because everybody's going to this sure thing. And we'd like to bring it back to a point where things were a bit different. And not, to me, sure thing means no faith. I know that might sound harsh, but faith isn't based on a sure thing. So I don't know. I just feel like that is one thing we'd like to pray for. But also, in our travels, as we expand more into traveling, we're looking into going further and further to do shows, doing festivals and different things. We need prayer that these things would be as according to the will of God, and we would be obedient, and we would still be able to stay humble and to conduct ourselves in a manner that would truly bring His name glory, and that we would do what really glorifies His name above trying to glorify ourselves.
Thank you so much for all the work you've done for the kingdom through your music, and for taking some time to talk with me. I had a really great time, and I really enjoyed learning more about your music and your ministry. Hope you have a really great night.
All right, thanks a lot. Thank you. See you, bro.
Evangelizing through music.
Someone loves you, even when you don't think so. Don't you know, you got me and Jesus.
Apostles that rock.
If you love what we do here, consider supporting the podcast. Your giving goes a long way to reach people for Christ. Click donate at apostles@rockradio.com, where you can also check out our news page and follow what's happening in Christian music. And as always, we have some free downloads as a way of saying thanks for listening. That's going to do it for this podcast. Join us back here next time for more Apostles That Rock.